Hey, so we're gonna start with poetry in motion. Name of that this poem might give a good background, might give a good idea of who I am, what's up, where I've been, what style. I don't really know, man, but it seems like a good place to start right now. So here we go. Poetry in motion goes a little something like this. I met poetry in motion the first time in Cyprus when he gave me, a hitchhiker at the time, a ride down the coast, and this coasting poet told me, every politician wants to build bombs and drop bombs, and no size of bomb will ever be big enough, and because you're an American, you're part of the problem. And since I could barely understand poetry back then, I told him I was very tired from walking 15 miles already, and I found this porn mag on the side of the freeway, and if you could drop me off somewhere near a military base, I'd be very pleased. And thank you for the ride so far, but I'm very afraid of where this trip might end up if I keep going with you. And he obliged, leaving me next to a very dilapidated Cypriot base, about 2 miles from the coast. A place quite safe from poetry in motion. The second time I met poetry in motion, it was as a woman dressed as a gypsy on the top floor of a bar in Chippenham, England, that a large group of my friends had rented out for a birthday costume party, and I knew she was poetry because the lines in her green eyes were as large as those in the freeway I walked in Cyprus before I met the coaster. And this form of poetry said to me, let's take a couple hours at the top of the stairs and get to know each other, and we'll judge people's costumes as they come by to drop off their jackets. And here I sat with poetry not in motion, for several hours of drinking and laughing, and I wasn't afraid like I had been before. But I knew this type of poetry was more terrifying than the first, because I had a girlfriend at the time, and I knew I couldn't love this gypsy like I loved my girlfriend. But I couldn't stop myself from spending the night with her on top of the stairs. Once the night came to an end, I found myself on a street corner with her and a friend, and I asked, what are you doing after this? She said, I'm going back to my dad's, and I said, okay, that's fine. And as I saw my ride coming to pick me up, I moved in, and a food transportation truck almost hit me. I walked back to the poetry in motion and gave her a kiss, and I told her I would never ever see her again. She looked hurt, but I felt very safe once I took a seat in my friend's car to go back home. I met poetry in motion the first time a third time while doing psilocybin mushrooms in Joshua Tree, California. And this was my first experience with any psychedelics, and I never felt fear as I walked along the top of the granite outcrops. I had no sense of terror among the skeleton trees in the valley, and I didn't feel dread when cocooned with my friend in a hobbit-sized cave. My meeting with poetry came when the moon rose over a sparse mountain, and the moon rise was the largest that humanity has ever experienced. And the moon rays spread across the valley behind the mountain, like a bride flipping back her veil in the wind, and I knew I had met poetry in motion, fully and without fear, and I embraced this and wrote about such, but anything I've written has never been enough, because writing will never be a great enough medium to convey true poetry. Because the most pure type of poetry is that of poetry in motion. The type of poetry that darts across your peripheral vision, and you think, did I really see that? And if you did see it, what did that speck mean, convey, explain, question, and what type of person are you after realizing you saw something more than nothing, or nothing more than something? That either your imagination created life, a flicker, or that a flicker of life created imagination. This is poetry in motion, a spark of imagination that is as terrifying or as beautiful as you want the creation to be. That's that one.